With Microsoft releasing their Windows 11 operating system, I decided it's a good time for us to talk about the risks involved in investing in Microsoft. As Charlie Munger says, it's important for us to invert our investing thesis to make sure that it makes sense to us. So I'm trying to do that a little bit more so I can go more in depth into some of the companies that I like a lot. And we're going to start off with my favorite company to invest in, which is Microsoft. Let's get this show started. All right. Whoosh. What's going on, people? It's your boy Kalechi back with another video. If this is your first time around these parts, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoy anything that we talk about on this video, hit that like button. Turn that thing, say it with me now, blue. Or you can just wait till the end of the video and see what you think about everything that I said in the video and then hit the like button then. But anyway, in this video, like I said at the beginning, we're going to be talking about Microsoft. And the reason I started thinking about Microsoft is I was reading a news article, as I do, or reading a newsletter like I do, and I saw a stat that just kind of jumped out of the paper, and I was like, I need to do a little bit more research on my favorite company of all time. But basically, the stat was the declining use of Windows, was the declining operating system. And it's been going on since 2009, where Windows has just been in a continual decline, where other operating system, Mac OS has been rising up, Chrome OS has been rising up, which I knew this was happening, but sometimes it doesn't jump out at you until you actually see it where you weren't expecting to see it. So when I saw this, I was like, oh my gosh. Microsoft Windows is becoming a dying dog. If you don't know what I mean when I'm talking about dying dogs, check out this video up here where I broke down the different segments and cycles that a business goes through, where it starts off at a question mark, then it goes to a rising star, then a cash cow, then becomes a dying dog. But this really just stood out with me because I made that video recently and I was like, Windows is becoming a dying dog. And if we start digging deeper into the revenue sources for Microsoft, Windows makes up a good portion of revenue for Microsoft. So let's go to Hypercharts. If you don't know what Hypercharts is, it's a great resource that I like to use just to see the breakdown of companies' revenues in a picturesque manner. It's just a good way to break it down. And Microsoft's Windows is in the more computing section. It makes up about 31%. If you take $13 billion divided by the total of $41 billion that they made last quarter, it makes up about 13% of Microsoft's annual revenue. And then if we go deeper into that number, if we go a little bit deeper to see exactly how much of that is Windows, it's about $5 billion that is Windows. Now, a lot of people are going to look at that and say, well, that's not too big of a deal. $5 billion or 41 billion, it's about 12%. That's still a substantial amount of revenue that they're getting from Windows operating system. And so when I see that their operating system is in decline, it's like, it's not the biggest of deals, but it's still a big deal to see Windows kind of dragging down. And everybody's going to be like, well, that's not too big of a deal because it's to be expected. At this point, you're not going to get a whole lot of growth from Windows anymore because everybody basically in the world is already using a Windows computer for the most part. They've expanded almost every part of the globe where you can basically find a computer. You're more than likely going to find a Windows computer wherever you look. And so with that, most people are going to be like, that's okay. But the problem is, much like the iPhone is for the Apple ecosystem, where the iPhone is the way that it digs its claw into you, Windows is the exact same way. They said this in the article, which was a big deal. It said, Microsoft has made great stride in creating versions of its apps that run anywhere and transforming Azure into a platform agnostic cloud service. However, the long-term health of its business still depends on a thriving Windows ecosystem. That's the first thing. That's the first thing that gets people gripped on. That's the first thing that hooks people to the system. It's like I said with the iPhone, the first thing that most people get with Apple products is an iPhone. People buy an iPhone and they're like, you know what, maybe I'll get an AirPods. And then after that, people are like, you know what, since I have this, I might as well just get an iPad and I might as well just get a MacBook because everything just works so well together. And it's the exact same way with Windows. When a company decides it's going to get Windows as its key operating feature or key operating hardware for all of its software, what it gets is a bunch of other things like the Office suite of programs. Then it gets connected into all these other things that Microsoft can begin selling to that business. But when that starts to fall away, when their key cog, when the main claw is no longer as deep, doesn't go as deep into customers to get them hooked, then things start to fall apart. And the main reason that this started to scare me is because I have a simple premise of whenever I think of investments. Because investments is always thinking about what's going to happen in the future, right? And so the easiest way for you to know what's going to happen in the future is you can look at children and see what children are doing right now. My premise is simply go where the kids are going. Where the children are going is where the future is going to go, especially when it comes to technology or anything of that sort. What children decide to do, a lot of times is going to start off looking like toys. It's going to start off looking like, oh my God, that thing doesn't make any sense. Much like the iPod and the iPhone and all these other things that most people thought like, oh, who wants to use that anyway? And now look how big that is. But the point is, children are the future. And so look at where the children are going and follow the children. And one of the key things that I was reading in this article is simply this. Many schools, which is a key point, many schools, especially those in the US, have opted for Chromebooks because of their edge in security and manageability. That's creating a new generation of consumers that equate Google, not Microsoft, with a desktop computing. And I've seen this personally myself. I have a lot of little children that I know. I call them my little brothers and sisters. I see them when I'm trying to help them with their homework, trying to help them with their schoolwork. Whenever I'm in town or they're calling me, guess what they're using? They're using a Chromebook. Their school gave them a Chromebook, especially last summer or last fall when everything was basically working from home and doing everything from home because of the pandemic. Guess what they got? They got Chromebooks. In other words, their future, they are more in line with all the Google services. They are more in line with using Gmail, with using Google Docs. I can't even believe that kids are like, yeah, let's create this Word doc. And they open up Google Docs, not Word document from Office. They use Google Docs. How many of y'all remember when you were kids? Everything was Microsoft. Everything was using the Office suite of products. But that's no longer the case. A lot of people are now using Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google, all of that stuff as their main way of creating documents, as the way of creating presentations and all of this stuff that we have come to just come and accept and say, oh, you know what, it's going to be Microsoft Office. Not anymore. So go where the kids are. And so that's another thing that I watched and I was like, that scares me a little bit. But even more so, Microsoft, in my opinion, is the greatest business to business company that there is. And this is the other part that freaked me out when I read it. It says, Microsoft still dominates inside large companies as you would expect. But I hate buts. I don't like buts. But today's startups frequently use Macs or give employees a choice. And that's when the other foot just kind of dropped. More and more we're seeing in society where there's a lot more creative jobs, creative type jobs, where people are creating videos, creating photos, and all these kind of digital creative entrepreneurship type of thing going on right now. Especially right now, we're kind of in the creator economy. We're in the entrepreneurship economy. And a lot of people are starting to go over to MacBooks. A lot of people are starting to use MacBooks, but even more so, startups. The key thing that is said in this comment is startups are starting to choose MacBooks. You can see it everywhere around you. And you could have seen it when I was in college. One of the reasons why I liked Apple and invested in Apple and why I'm long Apple is because when I was in college, everywhere I looked, guess what? The 4 out of 10 people, guess what the computer that they had? MacBooks. If not more than that. It's probably closer to like half of everybody. It was like most people will have MacBooks and then everybody will have like a HP, a Dell or anything else. But MacBook dominated every time that I was on campus. I would just see MacBooks. Everybody have their little design around the Mac logo. It dominated. And now we're seeing that play out to where the new businesses, the future enterprises are already building their bases using MacBooks as the base, which means that it's that much harder for Microsoft to try and get those new businesses to switch over to using a Windows device, to using Dell, to using HP, to using any of these other products that is available to them. Because what? They're used to what MacBook has to offer. They're used to the Mac OS system, which is one of the reasons why I believe that Microsoft is announcing this Windows 11 system, because they have to do something. They have to start acting in a different way in order to not lose all of this market share that they've lost for so long, where they went from over being almost 90% of the market to now being just 73% of the market. In other words, they're becoming a dying dog. Windows is becoming a dying dog. This is the greatest risk to Microsoft. The question that we have to ask ourselves when it comes to Microsoft is, can Microsoft turn one of its rising stars into a new cash cow? Can Microsoft evolve itself to be able to make sure that Windows doesn't just die off, but continues to generate cash? But then also, more importantly, can they create more things to ensure that their rising stars become cash cows? And we're already seeing some of that being answered. Like it said in the article at the end, where Microsoft has made great strides in creating versions of its apps that run anywhere and transforming Azure into a platform agnostic cloud service. So in other words, Microsoft Office, you can use it on Chrome, you can use it on Windows, you can use it on Apple devices, you can use it basically on any platform. And that was a decision that was made. And it was a great decision by the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella. That was a great decision that he made. And then also in their other acquisitions of other businesses like GitHub, which is a great decision by Satya Nadella to go that route of making Microsoft a little bit more open. Because during the reign of Steve Ballmer, who just completely missed so many things when he was overseeing Microsoft. He missed the reign of mobile. He missed the reign of Amazon when Amazon was coming out and understanding cloud businesses. But the good news is, even though he missed it, he still put some things in place where Satya Nadella was able to come in and completely drive Azure to become as big as Azure is now. But that's the key. And that's the other thing that Microsoft really has to tap into, is to make sure that Azure becomes the cash cow that it can become. But it has a lot of challenges. He has a lot of competition. Google is becoming better with their cloud services. Amazon is already number one with their cloud services. And then we have other contributors. We already have Salesforce that's trying to kind of nip at Microsoft's heel to make sure that they can steal some of Microsoft's customers. So there's a lot of challenges. These are the risks involved with investing in Microsoft. My personal take is I believe that Microsoft can evolve itself. I believe that Microsoft can make the necessary changes and continue to push itself further to ensure that it remains in its dominant place as the best B2B companies. And we're already seeing the ways that it's doing that by making acquisitions, and companies like LinkedIn, which LinkedIn last year, I think, generated over $12 billion or something like that, where it's helping companies that are already using the Microsoft set of tools remain with Microsoft so they're not being stolen by Salesforce and other companies. Doing those kind of acquisitions, it's going to help Microsoft as it gets bigger and bigger, because it's a lot harder for a large company to change itself. It's going to have to make acquisitions to be able to make those slight changes and evolution that's necessary. It's going to be key for Microsoft to keep making these moves. But this is the biggest risk that Microsoft has. Can it use its core Windows service? Can it make sure that it continues to dig its claws deeper and deeper into customers and start acquiring newer and newer and newer customers? But anyway, that's all I got for y'all in this video. I don't know. You guys let me know. Do you think Microsoft can make the changes that is necessary for the business to continue to thrive? Or do you think that this is the beginning of the end for Microsoft moving into the future? Put it down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. But anyway, that's all I got for y'all. I hope y'all learned one, maybe two things out of this entire thing. And if you did, hit that like button. If you loved it, hit that subscribe button. But I'm going to catch y'all up on the next time. Remember, generosity is always greater than greed. God bless each and every single one of y'all. And I'm out. Peace.